Chapter 15. Oh my gosh, what is on your hand? As usual, Melody's hawk eyes had caught the ring on Kaitlyn's finger the minute she stepped into the office. Of course, Kaitlyn had probably been drawing attention to the ring as well. She hadn't been able to stop looking at it since last night. It had stayed on her finger through the night and only come off during the shower. Even then, she'd been constantly worried it would get knocked off the counter and into the sink or get lost on the floor. It had been less than 12 hours, but her finger now felt naked without the ring on it. It's an engagement ring. Kaitlyn held her hand out so Melody could get a closer look. Dillon proposed last night. What? How? I thought he was still in Keystone. He decided to move to Denver. He's finalizing a lease on an apartment today. Melody blinked and shook her head. Wow, this has been a crazy 2 weeks. You went from hating Dillon? I didn't hate him, Kaitlyn interrupted. I hated that he left, and I think my anger at him was masking my real feelings. Whatever. Melody waved a hand to dismiss the notion. You went from not wanting to be in the room with him to agreeing to marry him. You do know you'll have to be in the room with him a lot now, right? Kaitlyn's cheeks ached as she smiled for the 1,000th time. It was a habit that had started up again in the last week, and there didn't seem to be an end in sight. I know. I'm looking forward to that part. And what does Jack think? Melody knew that most of Kaitlyn's dates fizzled because she couldn't imagine the man being a father to Jack. He's so excited. He gave Dillon the biggest hug, and when I put him to bed, he asked me how soon Dillon could adopt him. Wow, well, that is exciting news indeed. I feel like I need to attach a camera to you because I keep missing all the good moments. Not all of them. You're here for this one. Kaitlyn knew Melody probably expected it, but she was still excited to ask. Will you be my maid of honor? This time, it was Melody's turn to grin. Of course I will. Oh, now I'm excited. Have you set a date yet? No, he just proposed last night. He still has to take care of his place in Florida and settle in before we set a date. However, he did want an outdoor wedding, so I'm hoping he's thinking this summer. Melody sighed. An outdoor wedding. That's so romantic. When am I going to find my Prince Charming? Don't worry. I'm sure God will send him soon. Before Melody could respond, Kaitlyn's phone rang. Hello, Kaitlyn Bell Designs. How can I help you?
Kaitlyn, this is Officer Palazzo.
He paused as if expecting her to say something, but Kaitlyn wasn't sure who Officer Palazzo was.
From Keystone?
He continued, and then Kaitlyn made the connection. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Dillon always called you Dan.
Understandable. Anyway, we finally got the search warrant for Barry's room. Were you missing anything from your luggage or your room?
I don't think so. I had lost my locket, but Barry, found it and returned it. Suddenly a sick feeling covered her. Why?
He had quite the stash of items in his room. Jewelry to underwear. I'll send some pictures over. Can you look at them and let me know if any of the items are yours?
Of course I will. Officer Palazzo, he's not getting out anytime soon, is he?
No, Kaitlyn. He's going away for a time. In addition to the stolen items, we found psychotic ramblings of how he planned to kill Dillon if he ever returned, and how he planned to win you over. He may not go to jail, probably a psych ward, but I promise he won't be getting out for a while. If he does get released from the mental institution, he'll still have to serve his jail time for theft.
Those words should make Kaitlyn feel better, especially after hearing about the death threat against Dillon. But she felt more sad than anything. What had happened to him to cause this break? "Thank you, Officer Palazzo." "What was that about?" Melody asked as Kaitlyn hung up the phone. "Barry. They searched his room and found a ton of stolen items. Officer Palazzo is going to send over some pictures to see if any of them were mine." "Ugh, so sorry. I know how that feels. My car was broken into once, and it felt like such a violation." Melody shuddered as she uttered the words. "Well, enough about Barry. I want to show you my designs for the rooms I'm doing for Margie before I show her the final product." Melody's eyes lit up. "Yes, I can't wait to see them. After I saw that sunshine room picture you sent me, I was hoping she would let you redo the whole lodge." "Me too." The girls shared a smile and headed to Kaitlyn's office. Dillon signed the lease and shook hands with the agent.
"Thank you for making this happen so quickly."
"Absolutely. I'm just glad we had a unit available for you."
"Me too. At least I can cross one thing off my list."
Of course, he still needed to get a job, take care of his place in Florida, and plan a wedding. But at least he'd have a place to stay while he did it. He waved goodbye to the agent and dropped the apartment keys in his pocket. It was just past 5, leaving him enough time to grab some dinner and head to Kaitlyn's. He was excited to see her, but she had also asked that he come over so they could look at the pictures Dan had sent together. She didn't want to open the pictures alone, and he couldn't really blame her. Reading about people who did creepy things was bad enough, but knowing someone who did put a whole new light on it. Half an hour later, he stood at her door, fast food bags in hand. "Hey, you," she said as she opened the door. Then her nose lifted in the air and she sniffed and closed her eyes. "Did you get chicken pad thai from Mr. Wong's?" Dillon chuckled, glad that some things never changed. Kaitlyn had been a fan of Mr. Wong's for as long as he could remember. And he was afraid of what she might do if the place ever went out of business.
"Of course. I told you I was getting something good."
I knew accepting your proposal was the right thing to do." She wrapped her arms around his neck and pulled him down for a kiss.
"Well, I'm glad," he said when they parted. "But are you going to let me in anytime soon? Not only is the food getting cold, but we're giving quite a show to your neighbors."
Let them look. I never do anything interesting," Kaitlyn said. "But I am hungry." She pulled him inside and shut the door behind her. "Why don't you get the food set up while I get Jack?"
"You bet."
He headed to the kitchen, placing the bags down on the table before scrounging in the cupboards for bowls, plates, and silverware. "Is that Chinese food?" Jack asked as he entered the kitchen a moment later.
"Close. It's Thai food. Do you mean to tell me your mother hasn't shared this with you yet?"
"I have so. He just doesn't remember it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I ate this at least twice a week when I was pregnant with him." "Oh, no, I remember now," Jack said, as Dillon slid a plate his way. "I love this food." Dillon smiled at Kaitlyn.
"Like mother, like son."
After dinner, they watched a movie, and then Kaitlyn put Jack to bed. Dillon resisted the urge to look at the pictures until she returned, but his curiosity was growing. "That boy takes forever to go to sleep sometimes," Kaitlyn said with a sigh, as she plopped down next to Dillon.
"I'd say that gets better, but I remember staying up late until I was in high school."
"You're not giving me hope here." She slugged his arm before snuggling against it. He shrugged.
"Sorry. What can I say? Guess I'm a realist.
Kaitlyn took a deep breath. Speaking of realism, shall we address the elephant in the room? Dillon knew she was referring to the pictures.
Might as well.
She snuggled closer as he pulled out his phone and clicked on the first picture from Dan. Rows of jewelry was spread out on the bed.
There's the charm I got you. I knew he had taken it, and while I was in the shower, no less.
Kaitlyn shivered next to him. There are so many pieces. How long has he been doing this?
Probably since he started there. I'm surprised more people didn't complain to Mother, but they probably just chalked the missing pieces up to losing them in the packing. Did you see any pieces that are yours?
Kaitlyn took the phone from him and enlarged the photo. No, I don't recognize anything. I guess I should be relieved.
Well, there's one more pic.
Dillon took back the phone and tapped the next picture. This one was of clothing items. Socks, gloves, scarves, even a sweater. Kaitlyn sucked in her breath. He took clothes too? I don't know why, but that feels worse. More personal or something.
I agree.
He scanned the picture.
I'm pretty sure that's my sock. I thought I had just misplaced it in my packing.
Kaitlyn leaned in. That's Jack's hat. I thought he had left it on a snowman. And that's my scarf. Ugh, Melody is right. I just feel violated.
Do you want the items back? I'll text Dan and let him know. We may not even be able to get them, but do you want them if we can?
No, I don't think I do. I can buy a new hat and scarf. Having them back would just be a reminder, and I don't want one.
Me either, but I can be thankful for one thing.
What's that? Kaitlyn asked.
I think our mutual distrust of Barry drove us together even more. We had something to bond over that allowed us to heal from the past.
Kaitlyn shook her head. Now, that's not being a realist. That's being an optimist. But I think you might be right.
I'll do whatever it takes to keep you happy,
Dillon said, as he pulled Kaitlyn into his lap and placed his lips on hers. She giggled and snuggled closer to him. I hope you'll just keep doing that for a very long time.
Happy to oblige,
he said, as he kissed her again.